Yep, I'm right. I am right. All right, welcome back to Real Amigos. I was looking up some fun stuff on the side there. We got a special guest back today. Everybody's been wanting him back. Kevin Knight, welcome back, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. Happy as always to be here.
It's been a while, man. How are you feeling?
Feeling all right. Just cruising through the year, cruising through summer, ready for at least a few days under 100 degrees. That would be really nice if, for the first time since April. But other than that, I'm doing all right.
All right. My main man, Ian, it's been a while, like a couple days. How are you doing?
Yeah, it hasn't been that long. I'm doing great, man. I'm on the opposite side of Kevin. I want to maintain the weather. I think it's great. We need a little more water, though.
Oof.
Yeah, Alan, our Dallas squad right here. Yeah, man. So the lake levels are low, so that means prices in the lake are low. So
Right.
you should be buying lakefront property right now.
That's not what people are thinking, unfortunately. They're not buying anything right now.
Yeah.
That's the topic today. So last time we did a live stream, a lot of people were asking, we had some guests on from California, and a lot of people were asking about what we're seeing with home prices, what we're seeing with interest rates, what we're seeing with the market in Austin. So we're going to talk about the market in Austin. The stats for October still are not out, or not October, August. What month are we in? July?
August.
September? August. There you go. Man, the stats aren't out. They should come out tomorrow, but there's some interesting things that I've pulled up.
Yeah, July's out now, obviously.
What was that?
I said July's still sitting there looking pretty.
Yeah, it'll come out tomorrow. Usually it's the 15th or 16th. But let's talk about what we're seeing in the market. We'll start with Kevin. In the market right now, we went from, I remember specifically in January, Kevin, we were on here and we're like, there's 1,700 homes in the market. This is crazy. I can't believe this is this low.
Yeah.
Prices are going to, as long as this inventory stays this low, prices are going to go crazy still.
Sure.
And then we hit June and inventory did the reversal. So what are your thoughts on the market right now? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I mean, obviously slow, which is, expected, I guess, with what's going on right now. I was a little shocked on how fast the inventory caught up. But when I started looking back on it like a couple weeks ago, I went and looked back at like previous years and compared this to previous years. It's pretty normal for previous year inventory. And the only thing that's off is the pricing. And I think generally speaking, my thought is that, a lot of people rushing, sellers especially rushing this spring to try to get stuff on the market, thinking that they've missed the peak, which they did. And you get a huge influx of inventory. And that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. And most of what I've seen, even though there have been price reductions, I still feel like the pricing on a lot of these places is still maybe higher than is justified. And, going to have to come down a little bit before the buyers are willing to get off of the sidelines and pay that top dollar plus a 7% interest rate. So, I think we're still in a stalemate. If I'm being honest, I don't think we're out of this yet.
Interesting. Ian, what are you thinking?
I like that word stalemate. I think I agree with that pretty wholeheartedly. What I'm noticing is that, especially when you look at new builds, for example, people are getting really creative with, and have been for a few weeks now, maybe even a few months, with financing options, with giving design options, with trying to work with you to get things accomplished. And we've seen price reductions. We've seen all of these things, and it's still not accelerating to the point where people are satisfied, where the builders or sellers are satisfied. So I think stalemate is just the most appropriate word for it.
Well, speaking of, we've been watching prices go out of control really since January, right? We started the year at 550 was our median. We ended last year at 555. So Kevin, what you're saying is usually at this time of year, we see a dip in the market anyway, which if you look at the blue line here represents 2021 and the green line 2019. I took off 2020 just because it's such a crazy year. I hate even just using that as a metric. But if you look at the last half of the year here, we're coming up on a time when prices drop. My concern here is something I'm about to show us, and I want to get your feedback on this. So we're at 633 as of July is the median. This is for the Austin area. We have a ways to go from 633 to hit 550 where we start seeing negative numbers, right? 550 starts putting us year over year negative. I want to get your thoughts on this because this is what I'm tracking for the Austin numbers for August numbers is this right here. I'm showing prices are finally selling below list price. This is 99.2% of list price is what this is saying right here. The median list price was $599. The median sale price was $595. Now, keep in mind, my numbers, when I do these numbers, are always off from the people that do the actual accounting of this. But what I found interesting is that we're at 982 closed in the Austin area for last month, which is actually, whenever they do these numbers, should potentially be higher than the previous month. The previous month, July's numbers, I'd have to pull it, but I think it was like 930. So we actually had more sales, and according to this, in fact, what I pulled last time, we're still showing more sales. But they're probably going to, when they do these numbers, they're probably going to take off about 30 of these. And I imagine they're probably going to be at 590, maybe 585 is what they say. So you're going to see a lot of people talk about we are at 633. And if we end at 595, I mean, that's not a very big year over year gain. And how much further does it go? Do we end up going below 550? What are your thoughts?
I think when you look at this, we're not accounting for days on market yet in these numbers. And I think that's where it's going to start taking a toll when you're looking at August, September, October numbers. Because as the homes are sitting more, that's when people start feeling the pressure to either not list it as high or start decreasing the price. And that's what we've been seeing happening. And we're at the top of that bell curve, right?
Yeah, I mean, here's
starting
a
to curve
prime
down.
Example. What we're seeing is, if you look at this withdrawn, am I still on the screen? I am. Okay. 276 withdrawals. Remember back in the day when I got into real estate, 2015, if I saw 276 withdrawals per week, I was calling every single one. 45 expireds and 159 that are just on hold.
That's a big deal.
That's a pretty big deal, but only in the last 7 days, only 739 closings. It seems like a decent amount, but the pending amount is about 1,000. No, less than 1,000.
Well, and it's also, so the back on market's a factor, right? Because think about how many contracts fell out. That has to come out of our numbers as well. So decreases, that number went up, 500 from last week? It's like 1,500 last week, something like that.
And if we look at, and so this is the thing that I think a lot of people, or something we've talked about quite a bit, especially on this channel, is this right here. We're at 10,000, almost 10,800 units on the market. Now that's new build, that's everything, but that's a lot. That's a big jump from 1,700 when we were complaining about it at the beginning of this year.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've been looking at this data the last couple of weeks trying to understand. I saw this guy on Twitter, like these guys on Twitter, YouTube, they're all trying to, Chicken Little this thing. Sky's falling, everything's falling apart. But then the more I started looking into it, I did some of that data. I'll send you the stuff I was working on too, Jeremy. Like, I think the important ratio is the absorption rate. So like how many homes are getting absorbed off relative to the homes that are coming onto the market or that are active. So ratios that I like to look at are relative, are homes going pending at the same rate that they were previously, or generally at the same level that they were previously. And they have been going pending at similar numbers that they were previous years. Like 2019 is what the last one I checked. So 2019 and right now are very similar in terms of the number of homes going pending and homes closing. So that's a decent data point. Of course, that doesn't take into account that we're now at a lot more active listings than when I checked this data last time, which at the time I checked this last time, the number of active listings was only like 9,000. So that's going to change the ratios a little bit. But the point of the pricing, which I think is the key for me, is I'm talking to people about like talking them down off this ledge currently. Like this is this rubber band that was stretched really, really far. And, you know, it's snapping back and coming in the other direction really, really fast. So I think it's going to snap back in the other direction and come back. But the pricing, unless you bought a house like since January of 2021, you're still, like you were talking about, Jeremy, you're still in equity. Like you're not in a dangerous position of not being able to sell your home for like and get out of that mortgage and have it foreclosed on. The people that maybe bought last year at some inflated prices, if they're trying to sell right now, yeah, I think that they're going to struggle because they're not seeing the same thing. But even if you bought in 2020, I still believe that you have equity in your house, regardless of how much this softens for at least the next few months until the economy figures out what it's doing. So that's my personal opinion on it.
I really like that. Isn't there supposed to be another Fed meeting next week?
Yeah, but they're raising at 1 point.
Yeah. And that's the largest raise in 40 years, blah, blah, blah. Like this is what we're hearing.
Well, I mean, look, what I get frustrated about is that you have the Fed's trying to do everything they can to tamp down inflation, yet we keep signing bills that keep spending money, which that's like, so you have the Biden administration signing all these bills that, Inflation Reduction Act, that's just spending. That's not actually like you can air quote and name something doesn't mean it's actually true. And then you have the Fed who's doing everything to tamp down, and then we just keep signing more bills. I mean, what are your thoughts on that as far as like the spending that we keep spending, Kevin?
Well, I mean, the argument that people are using, and I don't agree with it, is they're saying that a lot of these bills that are sending money other places, that they're being readily approved because they're loans. And so their assumption is that these are going to be paid back. I mean, specifically the stuff that's going to like Ukraine, which gets billions of dollars every single week. It seems like the argument there is that will be paid back. And so that doesn't affect it as negatively. But I'm with you, Jeremy. Like, I don't think, I've said this before. People can argue with me if you want to. We have the smartest minds in the absolute world. They went to the Ivy League schools. They're geniuses in finance and economics, and these guys can't figure it out. Bullshit. Like I call absolute BS on that kind of stuff. Like if our smartest minds in the world economically are this confused by these situations, I have a hard time believing that. So when it does get thrown up into there like this, for me, it seems, I don't know, less believable. And call me what you want, but
there's so many variables in there. Like these smartest minds, have they been doing this for 40 years and that's what they're basing their analysis off of, or are they looking at it through a different lens? So that's one thing. But then to Jeremy's point with the spending, the problem is you're not getting the results anytime soon if it is going to be paid back, right? And so that's still hurting us in the immediate sense because it's driving reactions from the people that are consuming right now, from the buyers right now.
Well, if inflation, or in my opinion, allowing corporations to charge more money for things, goods and services that they haven't been able to increase the prices on for years, and then pocketing all of those profits, which makes no sense to me. Mm-hmm. So if inflation in that has gone up a lot, and people see that home prices are just inflated home prices, then I'm not sure why we correlate like a decrease in home prices. Like if our government is throwing money and hiking interest rates in order to decrease inflation on daily goods and services, then why wouldn't it affect the home prices? Why is bringing down the home prices, I guess, in this point, considered a crash in the market when that's what they're trying to do? They're trying to get the prices of everything down by increasing the interest rates. I don't know. I just want to get to a point. I believe the faster that we can get this, the better. I think they should just do what they have to do, tank out what they need to do, rip off the rip off the Band-Aid as quick as they can, tank the market like they know that they want to, and then start building back with confidence in the people. Because I think there's more consumer confidence today than any other economic downturn that we've ever had, because we believe in our economy. We want to spend money. We want to earn. We want to invest in stocks. We want to buy crypto. We're just like, y'all need to figure out what we're doing or not. Is this bear market over or yet? Because the moment there's a bull market sign, I promise you, everybody in retail is going to go back into spending a lot of money in this country.
Where you're dealing with a different generation of thinkers, right? That are buying all these homes and spending all this money, a larger majority. And so if they are used to, dynamically changing jobs and shifting lifestyles, this is really nothing in that sense.
Well, and even rental prices are not increasing.
Yeah.
Like theoretically, rental prices
but
go up right now,
so
but
rental
decrease.
Let's talk about that. Rental prices are high, but you have people that are like, well, I wouldn't even buy a house.
But they're decreasing though, quite rapidly.
Well, do you think that that's a supply issue as well? Because I'm seeing, Kevin, you've done some development deals here and there.
Mm-hmm.
What we're seeing is there's a lot bigger push, especially in the Austin area, to get more rentals on the ground. Mm-hmm. I don't think the rental prices have come down dramatically, but I still don't see a lot on the market for rentals in general. So I don't know that prices are coming down. I think we saw a flood of inventory because if you think about it, what was it, like a little more 20% of the purchases over the last year or 2 years, in fact, were investors in our market. In fact, you could argue that it was probably closer to 30%. So now you have a lot of those people that have been in this area now maybe potentially moving out. So maybe we have more inventory for those reasons, but I don't think we have as much like new inventory that's going to keep dropping prices. And, we talked last week, maybe it was last week, Ian, there's 100,000 available jobs in the Austin area. And that's with all of these businesses still moving here that aren't here on the ground. And we maybe net like 60,000 people new a year. So if you think about it, those jobs, it's still going to take 2 or 3 years for those jobs to actually get filled.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
we're at a high inventory now, but does that mean that going in the future with all the demand for these jobs, I mean, still every day, Kevin, you're seeing it, I'm seeing it, Ian's seeing it, everybody's seeing it. Announcement that, they're building a new film studio in Bastrop. They're building, Micron wants to bring in X amount for here. So we're constantly seeing more push, especially with in the microchip arena.
Mm-hmm.
So what does it actually mean for the Austin area? Does that mean that, okay, prices have been out of control, now interest rates are really high? Does it drop the prices enough that the moment the interest rates drop, everything gets repurchased in the Austin area? Do you continue to hold these investments? Do you sell these investments? I mean, I think that's everybody that's out there. You have all of these big names or big people that are out there. Oh, the sky's falling. But you have people on the far side, the sky's falling. And then you have a lot of realtors saying the market's not crashing, right? They're realtors. They have something to protect. I get that. I get where you'd say that. But we look at, we're in the market and we see what's happening. Where's the happy medium with all of this? Where's the truth in all this? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I don't know, like I'm not even sure if we haven't crashed home prices yet. Like, I'm not going to say it's not going to happen, obviously, but, we've made it through a long, since April, bear market, whatever you want to call it, recession or whatever. It's not been a very positive time economically. A lot of people have lost a lot of money since April, myself included. As much as I would not like to admit that I lost a lot of money on anime girl NFTs, I would admit that I did. And now nobody's in that market. I mean, NFT market, OpenSea, they're down 99% in daily sales volume since the peak of the spring. So anyways, a lot of people losing a lot of money, but yet home prices, I actually looked, the housing prices, the national average for housing prices went down like, I don't know, a couple percent last month relative to this month from last month. And then I looked at our data last summer. Between June and September, our prices went down 6.6% just during that year. It was just kind of like a normal time. It was a little slow, but it went down 6.6% from June to September last year. So I don't know. I still feel like we're in normal fluctuations. I just really do feel that when the sooner that we can iron out some confidence in our economy. We get to a pretty standard interest rate as far as whatever it's going to be for mortgages. We build up some confidence in people that they can come back into the housing market. I just think people are going to start scooping up houses left and right again after sitting on the sidelines for a while. I just can't see this absolutely dumping prices unless something major catastrophic happens.
All right. So we saw Bank of America. I did a whole video on this. Bank of America is doing basically non-QM loans again. So they're going to be doing no down payment, no nothing loans. You have all these other lenders that have done like T-Shack loans and all these other ones that are like kind of a no down payment loan in the past. So do you start seeing a lot more shaky loan products come out because of this? Now we have inventory. Banks need to sell loans, right? So they're going to have to figure out ways to come up with different loan types for people to continue to purchase. So do you think that we start seeing crazy loan types come out? I mean, Sarah's out there pushing a product. It's like an all-in-one product. I can't even begin to explain it because it's just way over my head. But do you think that that's going to be something that's going to help almost crash our market, or do you think that's something we're going to see?
I personally don't. I'll let Ian talk on it too. Like real quick, I'll just say that with the details of that specific program that you're talking about, that I don't know that would even help people qualify for a home at the price point they need to in our market. I believe that those were made for other U.S. markets a bit more than the Austin market. So I just don't see that affecting our pricing and risk very much. I don't think that increases our risk here. In fact, I've even noticed, like just talking to lenders about my clients that are generally borderline, they're not more qualified to get a loan than they were before. I still have people that are borderline on qualification. The banks aren't just like, you get a loan. It's still restrictive. That specific loan type was actually in higher density minority communities as well. And they did waive everything, but I think they still had a higher interest rate, if I'm not mistaken. There's no PMI, no down payment.
The no PMI is what's the interesting part on that.
Yeah, no PMI, no down payment, but higher interest rate.
So that was one of the things I wanted to bring up to people is like, anytime you do a T-Shack loan, USDA loan, you do an FHA loan, you do one of these other loan types, the interest rate's higher. So if you're talking right now, the daily rate is, where did I put it here? The daily rate is now for a 30-year fixed 6.3%. On a jumbo's 5.6. FHA, wow, look at that. 30-year FHA is actually lower.
And then jumbo is less.
Yeah, jumbo's less. So there you go. I mean, that's pretty crazy information. So like right now, like if you were going to get an FHA for 5.56 and you're doing a zero down for what, 7%, like, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think my first mortgage was 6.5%, 7%.
I was going to say, this is kind of like that equity conversation. You're still at a point where we're not back to the new normal, right? I'm going to use air quotes as much as I can in this podcast.
Right.
So because of that, I mean, normal was what, 7 to 9%. Right. So if they're basing it on historical information, then the thought is you could probably keep doing this. Eventually people are going to forget about what happened in the past. We're going to get back to what this normal is, and people will absorb the difference.
Yeah.
Even though the cost of homes are higher, the cost of all these goods are higher, you're making more money, hopefully, to be able to keep up with it. Obviously, where you live is going to be a factor. And let's go back to that, because one thing you were asking is, do you think that with all these companies moving here, we're going to need more inventory? Well, if you look at it, how many of these companies have you seen in the last month announce a plan to return to work? That is huge. All of the manufacturing or chip companies, until they're fully automated or they have automated trucking facilities or automated drivers and all that sort of stuff, they still need employees in the office. And that's going to be a huge benefit. John Deere, they're moving here. They're moving to Elgin. SpaceX, they just announced more in Bastrop that they're putting a facility there. Elon has had multiple mentions about different companies that they're expanding. The Austin airport is expanding. You need employees there. 973 on the east side, heading out toward Manor. They just approved a plan to expand that road as well. So this is all things that I think overall will increase the need for homes, but not right this second.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, I guess I'm looking at purchasing power as well. Like, I think eventually, like I said, when interest rates maintain a certain level for a while, people are like, okay, this is the interest rate I have, and then I need to go buy a house still anyway. But like, you lose like $125,000 worth of purchasing power at a median priced home between 5 and 7% interest rates. So, it's something to consider. Like,
you think about that $125,000 drop, and I was looking at a house, North Austin for $755. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, 1,700 square feet, and it was $755.
Yeah.
And so, when the interest rates were 3%, that was doable for a lot of people. Now, it does shift it.
I mean, I'm my own client right now. I'm looking at houses, and honestly, I'm in the same boat. I'm like, shit, I ain't paying $750 for 1,500 square feet. You could miss me with that.
We were getting ready to buy another property and rent this one out. And for the moment, while the interest rates are doing what they're doing, we actually just had a contract over yesterday to build another office in the house. It's just easy.
Have you seen those the
pods?
those things you can build in your backyard?
Oh yeah.
One of those companies hit me up to do like a paid advertising thing for the channel. I told them that wasn't
your brand.
Well, that's going to lead into our future discussion, but yes, that's definitely an option for a lot of people that don't have an HOA or have a tolerable, HOA that's tolerable to adding that type of thing in the back of your home.
I did just run a quick, I got this tool I've been working with to evaluate investment properties, and like it takes into account how much you're spending for mortgage and everything relative to all these scenarios, how much you could make. It increases the rent, it increases the taxes, all those stuff. And I just did like this equity build. But the point is, like, it's comparing the equity that you're building, paying off the mortgage relative to the time that you own the home and the income from a rental potential. That's
genius. Yeah. Relative to the time that you're in the home is the thing that very few people pay close attention to.
For sure.
Right. If you're going to be in the home for 2 years, it is a very different number, a very different strategy than if you're going to be in the home for 10 years. And the other thing is, you have so many people that say, oh, I'm not going to move. I'm going to live here 20 years. And then life happens.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Hi, Kristina.
Hi, Kristina.
John wrote this SH45 Southwest connector heads into design phase. So I actually had, when I lived in Grey Rock, I'll pull up the map in a second here, but 45 was cut right next to Grey Rock and it ends in Buda. And so I thought, man, the traffic's bad. It wasn't bad then, but I have all these like neighbors that purchased on the street that like literally your back windows look at SH45. I saw the new plan. It literally goes down there all the way to I-35. What that's going to do is create this cutout where people don't want to go through downtown. And so all the Southwest traffic getting to getting to Mopac is going to be so bad. And then everybody that has one of those homes that's sitting there looking at the freeway is going to see even more traffic, even more pollution, even more noise. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad I got out of that neighborhood when I did. Like, that was the best thing I ever did, was sell in my last neighborhood. Now I'm a lot further out here in good old Drip, but that kind of sucks. Kristina, who is amazing, says, so they're saying that the supply of homes is dropping like a rock in many markets and sellers aren't making bank. Is this true in Austin? Well, we were talking about it earlier, that we're now to like 10,800 homes. I noticed last week I expected more homes to hit, and they didn't, because I expected us to be over 11,000.
You know why that is, right? Football season.
so less people want to list during football
Well,
season?
I mean, that you got to get back into the systemic lifestyle, right? People are like, hold on, let me clean up. I'm going to start having parties, doing all that. So people, they seriously pause at major life events, and football for a lot of Texans is a major life event. Sounds ridiculous, but think about it. Really think about it.
I
Just like
wish I had
school
a
and everything
chart.
else.
I wish I had a chart for this. In fact, I started making a second chart, and I'll look at it here in a second. But what's interesting is that typically this time of year, and you guys tell me if I'm wrong, usually this time of year, August, what are we, September now? We've seen a buildup of inventory in August. September, that inventory is still here. And then really like October, a lot of people just start pulling their homes off the market. We were showing here in the numbers that there's, what the fuck would I do here? What did I do?
What did you do?
Anyway, so we start seeing less homes on the market. So I'm curious. That's why I always tell clients, like, hey, if we're going to list, the last week really we should be listing is like the end of May, and then wait all the way till November, because November, all of that inventory starts to drop off. So that's a seasonal thing we see here. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, absolutely. It's just like, so I said football, but you have, if the people have kids, then you have the proms to deal with. You have Labor Day. You have all these celebrations. You have school, getting into school, getting back into, again, the systemic lifestyle that people are accustomed to. And so it's hard to manage all that, all the logistics of it, as soon as your kids are getting back in school and listing your home and trying to relocate. And then you also have to look at the fiscal year end for a lot of these companies. So companies aren't going to start hiring until toward the end of the year or the beginning of the next year. So that's why the cycle is very, very commonplace, or had been prior to the pandemonium.
I just feel the only people selling right now are the ones that are kind of need to or planning on doing it in any way. Like you have a normal turnover of folks that just want to move or get a new job or whatever the case might be. I just don't think you'll see a lot of elective moves.
Right. So I was doing some math when we were talking earlier. So if you're putting 20% down on a $775,000 house and your mortgage rate was 3.5%, they gave you a $3,700 a month payment. What do you think dropping down to 650? So that's 125,000 less at 6%. What do you think the monthly mortgage would be?
3,900.
A little over 4,000. So I could see, so if prices drop, which they're doing, and they've come down $100,000, your payment's still going to be about $300 more than what it would have been had you bought it at a higher price. So that's how much interest rates do actually impact prices. But I'm just curious to see how much further they actually drop. I mean, we've talked about this pretty much at the beginning. But
well, and what's interesting about that number, that specific number, so your mortgage payment goes up by $300, but that's also you end up getting money back from utilities and some other cost of living, because now you have a smaller house for the same price.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a factor that I don't think everybody.
Well, we're not getting moved up. Like we won't get move ups in the city right now either. That's the thing, is like you're gonna pay $200,000 to get one more bedroom at a 7% interest rate when you had it like a 3 to a 4%, 2.5 to 4% if you bought anytime since like now this 2016.
That's exactly why I have somebody coming in. I was like, just build me an office.
Yeah,
makes so much more sense, right?
Yeah, it's great for the contractors. I don't know. That's why I'm not. And trust me, guys, like I would be the first to be like, yeah, the sky is falling if it was. But I mean, I just don't see it yet. I just don't. Even like corrective things. We've been in this corrective market for how many months now? You know, and people are still buying houses. People are still buying houses
since mid-June.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, the stuff that I've looked at, a lot of it's just garbage. That's why like there's a lot of listings that people threw stuff on the market with cell phone pictures. I saw somebody take pictures with a 35 millimeter camera and then take pictures of that with like a cell phone.
Hold on,
and then upload those to the MLS listing.
The thing about that is, as silly as this sounds, that could just be a strategy or something that might fly in Austin proper specifically.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But if everybody starts doing it, it's a problem. But
Yeah.
you're right. It's
I mean,
it's ridiculous.
It's over. They're using February based pricing and today's market and offering a product that is really terrible. And so the stuff that's going under contract still, we've always said this, the appropriately priced houses that are in good condition, that offer a good product, those are going under contract still. So if you're selling your house right now in this market, you need to do make ready. You need to have potentially staging done. You need to listen to your agent. They're giving you lots of good advice. And then you need to be at pricing that's probably like 5% less than what you would think that you were going to sell it for today. And to stay ahead of, I think, sitting on the market for a while.
What have you seen with, like you have all these sellers that are getting ready. I mean, are trying to sell right now. Somebody in the comments wrote that sellers are getting FOMO and they're trying to sell before the market really drops. But do you think that that's part of the problem, is that sellers are just, you probably have a fair amount of sellers that just needed to sell anyway, right? They've been waiting for probably 18 months for their new build home to get built. So now they got to sell the other home. So that might be part of it. But what do you think that some of these sellers should be doing to get ready to list and sell right now, if they are doing that? Is just FOMO?
Yeah,
I don't even know my question here.
I understand what you're saying. Like the FOMO sellers that I saw that are throwing these up, I think they're just fishing at this point. Like, hey, if you want to give me $650, my California buyer is going to come buy my house that's $100,000 more than it's worth. Like everybody thinks that right now. And I've looked at houses, like I walked into this house the other day that, and they were asking, like, it was like in Cherry Creek area. And they were asking like $650 or $675 for like,
can you believe
1,300 square feet. And the house was not even really remotely nice. And I almost laughed when the agent was telling me how much this guy was asking. She's like, well, that's what he wants, and he's not willing to sell it for less. I was like, this is what all these sellers are doing right now. They are so ingrained thinking like, my house is worth so much more. Where are all these California buyers you promised me, Mr. and Mrs. Agent? It's like, bro, just list your house at what the value of the house is today, like not where you think it was 6 months ago. I think a lot of these houses would move, honestly, if they were appropriately priced. We're not even talking drops in prices for the market. I'm talking appropriately priced.
But it's also the people that want to move, and then obviously they have to buy something, and they're looking at the interest rates and they're like, well, I need to make this much more in order to afford this new place that I'm buying. And so having that conversation with the seller saying, no, you can't, just because you need this much more doesn't mean your house is worth that much more. That's a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
So, somebody's asked about Treviso, so I'm kind of going through looking at Treviso.
Yep. They're still high.
I don't think prices have really come down.
You know what I think specifically with Treviso, and we can talk more about this but specifically with Treviso, I think what you're going to see is less wait time, where before, like you go back in February of earlier this year, and they were saying, oh, you're going to be 3 years out. Well, watch how many contracts are being abandoned, out of that 235 that were abandoned last week. Maybe 100 of them were from Treviso. I don't know, but you get these abandoned contracts, and so you'll end up having them be able to build more in a shorter amount of time, is my estimation. So the prices aren't going to shift a whole lot, but they can just you'll have a better time getting a house. Maybe the lot premiums will drop. Maybe.
I mean, I'm just looking all over the place. I mean, prices are still they're still
pretty high.
I mean, we're talking between $400 and $500 a square foot. Literally everywhere I look, between $400 and $500 a square foot. We're talking about houses that 18 months ago were at like $240 a square foot.
$250 a square foot.
Yeah, they're now like $450 a square foot, and sellers are like, this is how much my house is worth, bro. You have like hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity. Like, to me, it's greedy.
Well, what you're seeing also is that they have a lot of homes that are actually finished that you can buy, where you go back before and you just didn't have a choice. You just had to put the money down and had to commit to it. And now you have a few more options. So while it's more expensive, while the prices haven't decreased, you have a little more flexibility to negotiate. because they're sitting on them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Kevin's right. A lot of the stuff that I've seen priced too high to begin with. Secondly, when prices started dropping, people didn't start dropping their prices fast enough. So that's part of what I've seen the problem been. I mean, I'm looking at a lot of these Treviso properties that are on the market, and I'm looking at stuff that's like 20 days on market, sitting there, no price reductions yet. Like, I'm sorry, but after 7 days, we're going to start talking price reductions now. Like, I feel like that's what
I'm with you, Jeremy. I'm looking at a house that's in 78745 in Bannister area, 2,700 square foot, new construction. They want $610 a square foot.
That's stupid.
I'm not talking about Bolden and Travis Heights. I'm talking about Bannister, which is a good neighborhood, but south of 78745. Come on, 1.65. Give me a break, bro.
Manish, maybe if you watched my videos, I actually did a whole video yesterday. And they came out yesterday, and I talked about Mueller specifically. I don't know, though. It's still one of the problems I've seen is just quality of work. And Taylor Morrison building over on 51, they're trying to pound those out. So
I was gonna say, I pulled that up right away. You can look at that house, and it doesn't take you long to figure out that that's not the same thing they're building in some of these other neighborhoods. That's all I'm saying.
By the way, my last couple of builds that have finished, even by builders that were reputable when my clients went under contract, have been disasters, by the way.
Yeah, dumpster fires, absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a video that I filmed with an inspector, and that'll come out. And we walked and talked about like the issues we're seeing with builders. So that'll come out in a couple of weeks. But
nice.
It's crazy to me. I walked a property yesterday, and it's pretty close to completion. And you think that, things would be buttoned up. And this house had flashing. It's a Taylor Morrison build. Flashing on the roof, just like sticking out like crazy everywhere. I'm like, that's a hazard right there. If it rains and that water gets up under there, you're going to delay closing even further. Like, what? I understand that a lot of these builders are like really run tight with their, trades, their labor, they're waiting on stuff. But man, if you can't keep a home insulated, and it's been raining like crazy, now you get all this water penetration, you're just going to delay these poor buyers that have been waiting for like 2 years now for a home. You're just delaying them even more. It blew my mind how bad it was. And this was at a $1 million community it was in Parton Ranch. It's a nice community.
It's funny you say that. I had that discussion with a builder today, and their claim was, we are the only builder that has a zero tolerance for moisture penetration inside of our home. Only builder. And we're not publicly traded, so we can do things like that. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying what builder or anything like that. Want to know? That's a comment or a conversation later.
Interesting. Anthony says, hey, amigos, when do you think some of these nicer builders will start building out in Taylor master plan community? I think that you probably see stuff coming out soon, but it still takes a while to get some of these developments purchased, plans done. So it'd probably be a year or two that you'll start seeing a lot more stuff in Taylor. Are there areas where there's most unrestricted lots? Bastrop, Taylor. Screw Taylor, stop ruining the small, nice towns. That's funny. One thing I want to talk about real quick on here, and I want to get your guys' take on this, and we can keep talking about the market, so keep dropping your comments below. But one thing I really want to talk about, and now if I can find it, is this article out by Austin Business Journal. Now, I did a reel on this, and I put on a shorts. By the way, if you've watched any of the short content I put out, do you actually watch that content? I'm trying to see if doing shorts is actually worth it or not. So anyway, so this article is through Austin Business Journal. So basically, to boil this down, what they're saying is that there's almost 2,000 homes that are short-term rentals, and that are actually licensed, and 9 to 11,000 short-term rentals that are not licensed. So they want to go after those people that are not licensed. But I think one thing that's really important to note about this is how hard it is to actually get a short-term rental, to become licensed short-term rental. So there's only 3 different ways. One, if it's in a commercial, one, if you actually live in the property, and the other is like commercial adjacent, something to that effect. It's right here in the article, but to actually get licensed for Airbnb or short-term rental, it's very, very hard. So the question is, if they're worried about short-term rentals, and really what it comes down to, and I'll read that right here. Every single day, the city is losing out on thousands of dollars that go to support the cultural arts, music community, and historic preservation projects, says City Council member Vanessa Fuentes, who represents District 2 in Southeast Austin. I think it is incumbent of our City Council to address these problems. We are in a housing crisis right now, and we need to ensure that housing goes to those who need it. So basically what she's really going after is the fact that people are renting out homes and not selling them. But if people can't afford those homes right now anyway, then are they going to actually buy them? Maybe she should look and see that there's 11,000 homes on the market right now. But your thoughts on that, you can drop that in the comments. But I think what's really interesting about this is Ian and I, a week ago, were talking about all of the new things that that the city of Austin's trying to put into their budget. And one of them was they wanted to take more money from taxes from hotels to give back to not cultural diversity. What did we say it was? It was like cultural things like music and everything. So the question, after me giving you that long soliloquy of what's happening, what are your thoughts on the city now breaking down and coming after Airbnbs? Should they make Airbnbs easier to get, or is she right, Vanessa Fuentes, saying that people really shouldn't be doing Airbnbs? Those should go to homes for affordability. Start with you, Kev.
I don't want the government to tell me what I can do with anything, first and foremost, especially my home. I mean, homes are one of these really unique things that we own, but we don't technically own. Like, especially if you live in an HOA, like you don't pay your property taxes. You don't get to keep that home. I don't care if you own it or not. You don't pay your HOA. You don't get to keep your home. I'm sorry. Whether you think that you own it or not, you don't. You're renting it from the government forever. So like the last thing I want to do is have the government tell me you can't have people pay to stay in the house that you own. I will also say there's probably more because the hotel owners in town are frustrated that Airbnbs in the last few years, like it's popular to buy an Airbnb or arbitrage rental units into Airbnbs as well. And the hotel owners are probably lobbying backdoor to be like, hey, you need to help us out here because we're seeing a decrease in the people that want to stay. Anecdotally, I've seen a lot of people online that are fed up with staying at Airbnbs because they don't want to pay for a $200 night Airbnb. They don't want to pay $300 in fees. They'd rather just go stay at a hotel now. So I think it's going to balance out over time. But I also am a firm believer, like if our city, county wanted to do something about the affordability crisis for housing, then they'd take some of those funds, they'd invest them in government-owned housing that allows people to purchase homes that are entry-level homes or condo units or whatever to make them affordable to folks, and have that a direct program. They do not do that though. So, or at least not in bulk. So if they really wanted to, remember ladies, if he wanted to, he would. If our local government really wanted to solve this problem, they have all the tools available to them to do that. They're choosing not to for some reason. I can't tell you what their motivations are.
Ian.
Wow. So first, Dinosaur D, if you want to buy a PS5, I'll sell you one for $1,000 right now. So that's the first thing. Second thing is this is going to be a controversial parallel, and you can tell me how you feel about it. But I feel like the going after the short-term rentals is very similar to two very popular topics: immigration and MJ. You know what MJ is, right? Without having to say it on YouTube, because we don't
The
want
Last
to get
Dance with
demonetized.
Mary Jane.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why I say that is because it all boils down to the government wanting to make the tax income that they can count on. Right? That's all it is. And so you said, Kevin, you don't want the government to intervene, but I think as long as we're able to, an owner for an STR is able to provide them their revenue, they don't really care. The problem is now they see it's blatantly obvious that people aren't paying them.
Yeah.
That's the only real issue,
Yeah. I mean,
it's a capitalistic government. Right?
I think it would be only fair for there to be a couple of really unique steps that are available that the city says, anybody can get a short-term rental license. You just need to do X, Y, Z. You need to make sure it's safe or whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then allow people to just do that. And then, like I said, have a fee that's available to the city based on a flat fee or based on a percentage of what you make for the nights that you spend there. And I think people would be okay with that. Like, great. Thank you for letting me do what I want to do with my property. Happy to pay the fees. And I'll be a responsible.
Well, if you think about it this way, the city's going to get their money because, the city might not get all of their money, but if you think about it, a lot of these STRs or Airbnbs, whatever you want to call them, are homes that people don't live in. So they're homes typically that most of them are probably the 9 to 11,000 that are not licensed correctly are probably ones that you can't homestead anyway. So they're getting their taxes. The challenge is most of the tax goes to schools. And then in Austin, half of that goes back to the state. So if you're like one of my properties, they tried to increase my taxes from like $5,000 to $9,000. It's crazy in 1 year. We actually won that one, but so if you think about it, they're getting their tax money anyway. Now, what they're not probably getting from these 9 to 11,000, if that is actually true, is the 7 or 8% that a renter would have to pay that you then give to the city. So that's probably what they're missing out on and what they want to go after, which is fine. But make it easy. Like if the whole point, this is where I just lose my mind with these people at city council. If the whole point is to get more revenue, then make it easier to do Airbnb. If you make it easier and it makes it easier for them to collect 7% and then give it to the city, then you make more money.
You know where we saw this?
The thing is, hold on. The thing is, this is not, I know Vanessa Fuentes tried to make this about affordability or whatever, but this is not about the money. This is not about the money going to the city. This is about control. This is all it comes down to.
Bro, why didn't you tell me Sunset Valley's tax rate is 1.63? How did I not know that?
Well, there's only a small area of Sunset Valley.
Well, I'm buying in that small area of Sunset Valley then.
But homes in there are freaking $1 million.
I don't care.
But once they're paid off, guess what? Your tax rate.
I'm paying, this is wrong here, but it's 1.64. So your purchasing power is significantly more stronger on that same area. Plus, you get better equity off of it because you're not paying it towards taxes. Anyways, I'm digressing from it. It's not the point. I don't know what the point is. I forgot.
John, that should be 2023.
Yeah, that tax bill will finalize probably next month, and then you'll get the tax bill like around November, and then you got to pay it by January 31st, I believe.
January.
Yeah, because they're paid in arrears. So
yeah,
let the free market do its thing. Everyone wins. Exactly.
That's what I have learned in my experience is that there really is no such thing as a free market. If I'm being really honest, no, it doesn't exist. It's not even theoretical anymore. There's so much manipulation in the market with whether it's the stock market or crypto or housing or whatever. There's too many factors. There's no such thing as free market.
So speaking of, you sued or you had a lawsuit pending against Robinhood. How'd that go?
I lost it was a FINRA arbitration. So it's not technically a lawsuit. I can go straight through FINRA and get arbitration hearing without having to do it. It's very similar to the same hearings. I lost it because like 2 weeks before my hearing, the judge that was working the class action suit in a federal court in Florida wrote like a 60-page final analysis of the class action suit that basically said, stop doing this. These are ridiculous. Nobody has a case against Robinhood for any of this stuff. So anything going forward, like it can't even be considered. There's no possible way to prove this. So I lost that case, and which was fine. Like I was hopeful, obviously, but they do have great lawyers. If I'm being straight up honest, they have really good lawyers. And he did a good job. But I did get to cross-examine the finance president, not Vlad, but the other guy of their securities division. And he admitted to me things that they lied about previously of the reasons why they restricted the trades. And so, it's one of these things where it made me so hateful towards that whole sector of hedge funds, of exchanges. They trade on dark pools, they trade on algorithms. Like it's all manipulated, and it's just a way for to funnel money from the you and I up the chain to the wealthiest people in this country. And if we figure out a loophole to make it happen, they just add another, or like for us to make money, they just add another layer of complication to make sure that we can't win in that scenario, and it further just gets channeled up there. Like he admitted the day they had originally said that they restricted trade on Robinhood that day because they didn't have the funds in the clearinghouse to settle the trades with the volume that were coming in. And I found out later on, they said that they got the money. Well, they got the money from one of the Citadel, which was one of the companies that was shorting GameStop anyway. But then further to that, they did have all the money. They actually had billions of dollars available to settle those trades. That wasn't a problem at all. So actually to this day, I have no idea why they stopped, except for the reason that they just said, we're not going to allow you to do this anymore. Ironically, I got into the Bed Bath & Beyond stock a couple of months ago, since the last time I was on here, and it was getting squeezed and ran up. And during the week that it was gamma squeezing, they took away the ability to buy call options again for Bed Bath & Beyond, and it killed the momentum on that one anymore. So like if there's any of these situations where they think the precedent has been set, if a retail investor is going to make money anymore, they just say, no, we can't afford to do this. We need to shut it down. So anyways, that's long-winded, but that's what happened.
Interesting. So if that's the case, like, and the whole system's rigged, are you still buying stocks? Are you still in the stock market? Like, what are you doing?
My philosophy, I'm not in stocks and options now. I think it's too risky at the moment with the volatility in the market. I am in some very risky but justifiable cryptocurrency investments at the moment, and waiting to see how those play out. But otherwise, I'm not doing anything at all. I'm waiting to see what happens. Just a lot of stuff going on. I do believe that, I mean, listen, you guys know who I am. I'm not trying to be like a tinfoil hat guy. The system's, it's built against us. And the only way I think that you can make money is if you happen to luck upon or know that you're playing the same game that they're playing, and then you ride the same wave that they're riding. Then I believe that you're going to make more money than normal in those situations. But otherwise, if you're trying to fight against it, you're not going to get one over on them. Sorry.
That's sad. I got a question for you here. So you've probably heard of the California Prop 13 that they passed. We get asked this question a lot, which caps your tax at 2% yearly. Do you think that Texas will put in something like this?
I think the way to answer that is to turn around and ask the same question we've always been asking. When does Texas do what California did? Like, how often does that actually happen? Like, really think about that. Or how long does it take for Texas to do what California did, at least with the current administration in place?
I can't see it's going to happen ever.
I don't think something like this is going to even get on a ballot or any attention, because the problem with Texas is that Texas keeps incentivizing businesses to come here, so they give tax breaks to them, so you have more people coming in, so the people moving here are the revenue source, right? I just don't think Texas really, Democrat or Republican, because we're getting pretty close to being a purple state, but it doesn't matter. I don't think either one wants to change the system, because I think they know that this is like, it's a great system. If they ever change and went to an income tax system, it might push a lot of these businesses away. So it's better to just put your hands in your pocket and do nothing to them than actually having to make that hard choice. Do we actually want businesses to still move here if we can't incentivize them anymore, because now they got to pay taxes and payroll taxes and all that stuff. So I don't think Texas will. I think you'll get to a point where prices have to come back down. Like, the thing that would make this so much easier is if the city just did what it's supposed to do and created more density and made it easier for developers to develop. If they made it easier to develop, that would drop prices. All the things that are at their hands in order to do, why do they not do them, Kevin? They just make everything worse. Did
you see that report that it's been a while. It's been like 6 months ago, but they did a report about the cost to develop in Texas. Have you seen that one? We talked about it on the show, I think, at one point.
I don't think we did. We kind of talked about it.
We talked about it a little bit, very briefly. About it's ridiculously more expensive to develop per unit here in Austin than it is anywhere else in Texas. It's 5 times or 10 times more expensive per unit at smaller numbers to develop here than in Houston, for example. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I think that there's a lot of things that can be improved. The only reason I can think that they're not is just like the Robin Hood recapture law with our property taxes going into the Austin school district. And actually Austin paid more. They paid more to the Robin Hood recapture this year than we actually kept in the district. That's factually. So just so you know, Austin, most of your property taxes that you think are going to the school are actually going somewhere else in the state, but they're not even really going to those schools. They're going into a fund, which is being drained by other people for other special purposes. And some of that rest of that money goes to low income schools in the state. So anyways, but yeah, there's no reason to change these unless there's why would they change the system that doesn't require to be changed where they'll make less money? I just can't see that happening. They have no reason.
I think it'll, when it'll change is when our politicians can get their pockets greased by the change. I think that's the only time. So
it'd have to be a significant greasing though, because if you think about changing things like tax rates, we're talking about money required every year of every homeowner everywhere. There's no amount of politician money, I think, that could be paid out that would justify changing it to a lower number. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
These politicians, that'd be okay, you want to change the tax rates for every house forever and lower it? I want $100 million. That's the only way I'm going to do this, because it's never going to work otherwise. And if I was a politician, I wouldn't take any money. But if I was a crooked politician, I might take $100 million.
Oh man. I want to bring this up real quick on my Instagram. If you haven't been watching my Instagram, I've been doing these daily shout outs. And one I'm really proud of that nobody really watched was this one about mobile loaves and fishes. So if you're interested in my daily shout outs, I'm shouting out people kind of every day, businesses, fun stuff. So if you haven't been watching my Instagram at The Real Jeremy Knight, this one I just did. Oh, it is on the screen. Okay, cool. This was a fun one that I did. I did one for somebody on this channel too the other day. Ian Williams got a shout out. So you got a Jeremy shout out.
That's awesome, man. It's very good.
Yeah. But if you're not watching that. So, all right, we've been at it at an hour. Kevin, what's your final words, man?
I'd say eat more vegetables and tell someone that you love them.
I love that. Ian, I love you.
That was really good. Darn. Pay it forward to the person in the drive-through behind you.
Yeah, there you go.
Unless they're buying 100 tacos, then probably don't. But
and Kevin, if you're thinking about adopting, adopt a puppy from Austin shelters right now because they're overflowing. That's where Nezuko came from.
Or if you know somebody that needs or wants a puppy, adopt it from Austin, the Austin shelter.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people out there that need that companionship, especially now with all the change in relationship dynamics. So,
But it's good to see you guys. Jeremy, thanks again for having me on the show. I always
Yeah,
enjoy
man.
it. Ian, you as well. Love our dynamic.
We'll bring you back, man. We missed you.
Yeah.
It gets sad when you're not here. After a couple of weeks, I'm like, yeah, we need our Kevin back. So
yeah, every time you need a little spice, a little flavor, a little conspiracy theory, then just call me up.
I love
gold
it.
chain.
I love it.
All right. See you
right.
guys.
Thanks, everybody.